A close friend of mine is in Israel, so he sent me a picture of a street sign that he thought I would like. Here it is, Harry Street. Now he wrote to me and said, I don't think that's really what they meant. If you look carefully at the Hebrew, it should be Ha-Ari Street. Presumably the street was named after the great sage, the Arizal. And when they translated it, they spelled it H-A-R-R-Y, Harry. I wrote back to him and said, no, I disagree. That says Harry Street. It's incontrovertible. That's what it's called. I said, and besides, I'm certain that the Arizal would not want the honor. He wouldn't want the kavod of having a street named after him. So I'm willing to take one for the team. I say that jokingly, of course. But how do I know that the Arizal certainly would not have wanted the honor? Because the sages tell us that you're supposed to run away from, not towards honor. And we see a great example of that in this week's Parsha. Moshe's father-in-law Yitro comes back to greet him after the Exodus. And he brings along Moshe's wife, Yitro's daughter, Tzipporah, and Moshe's sons. There's a beautiful family reunion. And then we're told that Yitro sits down to a meal with Moshe's brother Aharon and with the elders. But Rashi, when discussing this passage, asks the obvious question, where's Moshe? Why isn't he listed? And Rashi explains, Moshe was the waiter. He was serving the meal. The best analogy I could possibly come up with, and it's still not a good enough one, would be if you sat down at a restaurant and a woman walked up to you and said, hi, I'm Liz. I'm going to be your waitress this evening. Would you like to start off with the bottled or sparkling or tap water? And you took a look at Liz and realized, wait a minute, that's not Liz. That's Queen Elizabeth as my waitress. You'd be looking all around like, where are the cameras? Obviously, this is some kind of crazy prank. But this wasn't a prank. Moshe himself, forget Queen Elizabeth, with all due respect to her, this was Moshe, the fellow who spoke face to face to God, who took the Jews out of Egypt, who was soon going to go up on the mountain and receive the Torah from God. Moshe was the waiter for a meal, taking orders. This was one of the way stations during his career arc before he became the person that the Torah is eventually going to describe as the Anav Mikol Adam, the most humble person in the world. And yet, humility is still not enough. Because you have to be very careful that your humility is always only used as a shield to protect you from ego, from getting too big for your own britches, not as a sword to make others feel bad. What do I mean? A number of years ago, I was at an event, and there was a very, very well-known rabbi there, along with his wife. At the end of the event, when it came time to leave, the rabbi helped his wife get into her coat, stood behind her and held it so she could put one arm in, and then the other arm. And there was a pretty well-known photographer there, and he saw this and grabbed his camera and took a picture. And the rabbi's wife, the Rebbitzin, saw him, recognized this photographer, and said to him, you cannot send that picture out to anyone. He said, why not? It's such a beautiful picture of your husband and the great rabbi helping you with your coat. And she said, I'll tell you why not. Because other women, other wives may see that picture, and they may show it to their husbands, and they may say, why don't you help me with my coat? Look at the great rabbi so-and-so. He helps his wife. You're more important than him. And I don't want those husbands to feel bad. I don't want to create any marital strife. So it's not enough to be humble. We also have to be exquisitely sensitive to the feelings of others.